Most people think the United States began with explorers discovering empty land. But that version of history leaves out millions of people who were already here.
Vast indigenous nations already ruled, traded, and built cities across this continent.
So the real question is not who discovered America, but how a continent of nations became the United States.
To understand the United States, we must begin with one truth. It did not appear overnight, and it was never empty.
Long before colonization, this land was home to millions of indigenous people across vast and diverse nations. These nations were not primitive or scattered. They governed, traded, farmed, and built permanent cities. Places like Cahokia rivaled European cities in size centuries before Europeans arrived. This world already existed when Europe turned its attention westward across the Atlantic.
In 1492, Christopher Columbus reached the Caribbean, opening the door to European expansion. Columbus never reached the future United States, but his voyage changed everything that followed.
Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands soon claimed lands already inhabited by native peoples. Spain became the first European power to colonize parts of what is now the United States. In 1565, Spain founded St. Augustine, the oldest permanent European settlement in the country. Spanish control expanded through missions, military forts, and forced labor systems.
Religion was used as a tool, often alongside violence and enslavement.
Meanwhile, England focused on permanent settlement along the Atlantic coast. In 1607, Jamestown became England's first lasting colony in North America.
Unlike Spain, England brought entire families, claiming land for long-term ownership.
This expansion displaced native communities at an unprecedented scale. By 1733, 13 British colonies stretched along the eastern coastline. Treaties were signed, broken, and rewritten whenever settlers wanted more land.
France colonized differently, moving through rivers rather than coastlines.
French settlers prioritized trade and alliances with native nations.
The Dutch briefly controlled New Amsterdam, later seized by England in 1664.
Colonization advanced through war, disease, and forced removal.
European diseases like smallpox killed millions without a single battle. In some regions, indigenous populations declined by 90%. By 1763, Britain emerged as the dominant colonial power.
But British rule brought taxes without representation, fueling colonial anger.
In 1775, tensions erupted into the American Revolutionary War.
1 year later, the colonies declared independence from Britain.
In 1783, Britain formally recognized the United States of America. But colonization did not end with independence. It changed hands.
The new United States expanded westward, claiming indigenous land. Policies like the Indian Removal Act forced mass displacement. Native resistance was met with military force from the federal government.
By the mid-1800s, the nation stretched from ocean to ocean.
This expansion completed centuries of colonization across the continent.
The United States was built through empire, conflict, and survival.
This history is documented in maps, treaties, archaeology, and records.
Understanding colonization explains modern borders and ongoing struggles. History does not disappear. It shapes the world we live in today.
And this is how the United States was colonized. At the same time, indigenous nations were not passive victims, but active societies defending land, culture, and survival. For generations, native nations negotiated, resisted, and adapted as European settlements expanded around them.
As settlers demanded more land, peaceful coexistence increasingly gave way to violence.
One major turning point was King Philip's War in the 1670s, one of the bloodiest conflicts in colonial history.
Entire native communities were destroyed, and English dominance expanded rapidly. As colonies grew stronger, European powers fought each other for control of North America.
These imperial wars were often fought on American soil, using native allies on both sides. The largest conflict was the French and Indian War, ending in 1763.
After Britain's victory, France lost most of its North American territories to British control.
But victory came at a cost. Britain raised taxes on colonies to pay for war expenses.
This angered colonists, who were taxed without representation in British Parliament.
Tensions escalated, leading to open rebellion against British rule. In 1775, the American Revolutionary War officially began.
The colonies declared independence from Britain.
By 1783, Britain recognized the United States as an independent nation.
Independence changed power, but it did not end colonization on the continent.
Now the United States began expanding westward into native lands.
This expansion relied on military force, broken treaties, and forced removals.
One of the darkest chapters was the Indian Removal Act of 1830.
As a result, tens of thousands were forced from their homelands.
The most infamous example was the Trail of Tears. Thousands died from hunger, disease, and exposure during forced marches. Meanwhile, the nation expanded through war with Mexico in the 1840s. This conflict added vast western territories to the United States.
Gold discoveries followed, drawing settlers deeper into native lands.
New conflicts erupted as native resistance met U.S. military campaigns.
By the late 1800s, indigenous nations were confined to reservations.
Today, indigenous nations still exist across the United States.
For land rights, sovereignty, and recognition.
The historical evidence is clear, Your Honor. This land belongs to the community.
The USA was built through centuries of colonization.
This process involved European empires, then American expansion.
It also involved the displacement of millions of indigenous people.
These facts are documented in maps, treaties, censuses, and archaeology.
It also shaped inequality, conflicts that still exist today. Understanding this history helps explain modern America. It explains why land, race, and identity remain contested issues.
History does not vanish. It continues shaping the present.
The story of colonization is complex, painful, and real.
Facing it honestly is essential to understanding the nation's foundation. The United States was not discovered. It was built through colonization, resistance, and survival.